Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So, building on the discussion regarding Satan and the satanic whispers, one question that I wanted to understand, I did some research on that, was are there examples from Old and New Testaments, Torah, Bible, where Satan caused people to forget? And the answer is yes, there are many examples from both Old and New Testament where Satan is depicted as causing people to forget. In the Old Testament, one example can be found in the book of Isaiah, where Satan is described as a destroyer who blots out the name of the Lord and causes people to forget the Lord's commandments. Similarly, in the New Testament, Satan is often depicted as a deceiver who causes people to forget the truth of God's word. And in other places, um, it's mentioned that Paul writes that Satan has blinded the minds of the unbelievers to keep them from seeing the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is image of God. Again, something that Muslims don't directly believe in, but it is mentioned regarding the Satan that he has blinded the minds. Another example is the book of Genesis, where Satan is the form of a serpent, causes Eve, Hawa, to forget what God, Allah, had commanded and causes her to eat the forbidden fruit. In the New Testament, Jesus, Prophet Isa, warns his disciples that Satan is like a thief who comes to steal, kill, and destroy. According to John 10:10, Satan is also referred to as the father of lies in John 8:24 and deceiver of the whole world. There are several instances in the Bible where Satan is described as tempting or deceiving people, leading them to forget or ignoring God's commands. One example, as we talked about earlier, but in detail, is the example in the book of Genesis where Satan is in the form of a serpent, tempts Eve to eat the forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge of God, of good and evil. He tells her that if she eats the fruit, she will not surely die, but will instead be like God, knowing good and evil. According to Genesis 3, 4, and 5. This is a form of deception where Satan causes Eve to forget the warning that God had given her about the consequences of eating from the tree. Another example is found in the book of Exodus, where Satan tempts the Israelites to forget about God's promise to lead them to the promised land and instead, they started worshiping the golden calf while Moses was receiving the Ten Commandments. They forget the great miracles that God had performed for them and the promises he had made to them. In the New Testament, Satan is often portrayed as a tempter, causing Jesus to forget who he is and what he came to do. For example, when Jesus is fasting in the wilderness, Satan tempts him to turn stones into bread, according to Matthew 4:3, to jump from the pinnacle of the temple and to worship Satan in exchange for all the kingdoms of the world, again in Matthew. In each of these temptations, Satan is attempting to cause Jesus to forget his mission and to question the will of God. Therefore, it is important to know that Satan is not it's Satan is always here, but we should also note that Satan is not all powerful, but a deceiver and a tempter. The Bible teaches that we have the power and the free will to resist Satan's temptations and deceits and to remain steadfast in our faith. In all these examples, Satan is depicted as trying to lead people away from God and causing them to forget about his commands and promises. This is very much similar to what the message is from the Quran, because the God is the same God, Satan is the same Satan, known as Shaitan and Iblis in Quran. God is the same God known as Allah in Quran. He is the God of Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, all the prophets through Prophet Muhammad, and all the creation through the end of times. So we need to be cautious of this person, this entity, Satan, because deceiving forgetfulness causing all of these problems is something that he or she or it is really good at, and we should be always self-conscious because it has done that to many of the people before us and will do that for many of the people after us. So it's something that we have to be very careful about. We're going to continue about this from a Quranic perspective about the deception of Satan in Quran.